All right. Let's get this out of the way first. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on Tailboard Talks Firefighter podcast are solely those of the speakers, guests, and host, and do not in any way represent the thoughts or views or opinions of any other employer, partnership, or sponsor. The material and information in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should be used at the listener's discretion. Welcome back, everybody, to the 4-Shift Firefighter Tailboard Talks podcast. My name is Chris. I'm your host, and we're back in the office. The office is clean enough to use. We got a tight shot today because it's not that clean, so we're going in tight. But welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode with Raina at Shift Work Dietitian on Instagram and Facebook. Really awesome. Like I said in the podcast a few times, like I said in the episode a few times, I really like her because her approach is measured, it's realistic, it's deliverable stuff. So if you haven't listened to it, go check it out. Hope you dig that one. Right off the top, let's get to the my affiliates, my guys, my people. Rescue 1 CBD, 0.000 THC, safe for the job. Go check them out. I think you're going to like their product. I like it. I use it. I recommend it to everyone. Yes, I'm an affiliate, so I get a little cut if you go through the show notes and order. That's besides the point. You can also go back 2 or 3 episodes where I replayed my initial interview with John, the owner of Rescue 1 CBD, and check that stuff out. Like I said, 0.000 THC, safe for the job. The second one, Fourth Frontier, that's the heart rate monitoring strap I use for all my training stuff, all my endurance rides, all my workouts. I wear it on shifts sometimes overnight to see what happens when the tones go off. But it's a heart rate monitoring strap. It also provides you with lead to EKG, so you can do live look-in, or you can look back and say like, oh, at 2 o'clock when I was woken up for this fire alarm, my heart rate jumped from 50 to 110, and you can see lead 2 and see what's going on. Pretty cool device. Check it out. There's actually 25% off discount code for that one in the show notes and on my website. Another way to support the show, last little pitch here, is the Buy Me a Coffee button. This goes directly to, I'd like to say me, but usually Nathan, to get donuts when we go out and get coffee. It's just an easy way to support the show. The show is free. I tried running ads for a hot second, but I think I'm done doing that because it wasn't worth it. But if you like the show, if you think any of these topics are interesting, if you just want to say good job, throw me some coffee money. It'd be very much appreciated. If you really like the show, and I remember I said this thing's always free, you can sign up to be on a subscription where it just donates $3 a month automatically, and you can choose your own increment, but it starts at $3. That would be so awesome if you guys did that, because the road to monetizing podcasts is long and painful and pretty much void. So help me out. Appreciate it. Let's get into the topic today. Oh, one more update. Not begging for money anymore. Just saying I'm living the sauna life. We looked at the infrared saunas a long time ago at my department. We got one, but it was in the emerging stages of like red light stuff, far infrared stuff. I should say that, not red light stuff, but far infrared saunas. And we had a boatload of data saying, hey, it's a pretty good thing. It was still scrutinized pretty heavily, still is, but it's expensive. So I went for the $200 Amazon version. It's just a steam room, basically. It's a little phone booth. It was $200. It's got a little rice cooker looking thing. Shoot steam into it. It's uncomfortable, but I really like it. I will say it's way less uncomfortable than a cold bath, but you can spend like 20, 30 minutes in this thing. And the last 10 minutes get pretty uncomfy, but I like it. There's plenty of data on wet saunas and dry saunas about lowering blood pressure, which you know I got to do, longevity, circulation, all those things. But I'll tell you what, even if that's not a concern to you, even if you're not worried about that stuff, just being in a quiet room for about 30 minutes is nice. It's nice. And you're kind of isolated. The front window fogs up. You can't see out. You can really scare someone if you wanted to, because you can really sneak up on someone inside this thing. If you're outside of it, they're outside. Inside, it's hard to sneak up on them. It's pretty small. But the other thing it does for me is it forces you, like in the 20th minute on, forces you to breathe. And that's one of the signs I've recognized and I've shared on here before when I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed or distracted. I tend to hold my breath a little bit. So I'll do like a catch-up breath every couple minutes where I just take a big breath. Not a sigh necessarily, but like, oh, like I'll basically be catching up for not breathing. And that's one of the signs that triggers a little thing in my head and says, what is going on here? Being in the sauna for that long and having it so steamy forces you to take those catch-up breaths or makes you focus on actually breathing, which I really like. So if nothing else, it's helping me do that, which helps calm me down sometimes. And if I get a little blood pressure lowering out of it, awesome. my little bit of muscle relaxant coming out of it. Very cool because I'm often sore from working out and doing these training rides. But new updates. So I'm going to document that more, keep you guys up to speed with it, but I'm living that sauna life, man. I'm not doing the cold plunge thing, mostly because it's uncomfy, and I'm okay recognizing that and admitting that, but going with sauna life. Now, topic for today. I've had several conversations in the past about this, and I think guys at work sometimes avoid talking to me because they think I'm going to turn our conversation into a podcast episode, which I get. I have a pretty good track record of not burning guys down on here or selling people out, but this one's come up a few times, and I recently had another conversation about it yesterday while at work, 2 days ago while at work, and it's essentially balancing your priorities with your department's priorities with whatever other things are important to you in your life. And there tends to be a major collision of those things the farther you get into your career in the fire service, because whether you're a blue shirt, a lieutenant, a captain, up on the chain, whatever, you're going to be asked to do stuff. And at some point, you might be asked to do stuff that you would consider like out of your job description. It might be more administrative stuff, more clerical stuff. You might be asked to review EMS calls, develop training plans, run reports. Well, who knows? Whatever, right? But essentially, it's non-emergent firefighting and EMS tasks. And it's a balancing act because your department above you thinks those things are very important. And below you, they don't even know they're on the radar a lot of times. So you're stuck in the middle trying to balance that thing. What that can lead to a lot of times, because typically the people they're asking to do these tasks are able and they're go-getters and they're smart and they're willing, is you get more and more stuff piled on. And so if you take on a task and you're like, this is really my limit. Like, I don't have a ton of time to devote to this thing, but I want to do it well and get it off my plate. So I'm going to do a good job. I'm going to hammer this thing out. From above, a lot of times they'll be like, wow, we told him to do that. He did a great job in shorter time than we thought. Let's give him some more stuff to do. Now you get two things at once. And now you're even more stressed out because that's what you get. When you do a good job, you get more work. That's kind of the way we roll, right? But it's a complete difference if that was an emergent task. If you're pumping and someone says, hey, I need another line, and you look at your drops or you look at your pump panel, you see your intake is going close to 20, you say, no, you can't have it. Very clear, right? The other day we went to a fire and they said, hey, bring your fan up. And we said, our fan's charging at the station. We don't have one. Can you get someone else new? And they said, yeah, we don't got one. Can't do it. If they say, hey, grab another roof ladder, we don't have one, can't do it. Grab one from someone else. No problem saying that stuff. It is justified. We need something done quickly. If we can't do it, someone's got to do it, so find them. But when it comes to non-emergent tasks, that's when we get ourselves in a little bit more trouble, because it's like, I guess I can try to do that on my downtime, right? I guess I can do that after hours when it's quiet, when I'm not running as many calls maybe. If I have to, I suppose I can do it at home because I have internet access and we can get onto our shared drive and I can just do it. And that's where we kind of dig ourselves a hole, right? We start to kind of start digging that hole to get into that we're never ever going to get out of, because we kind of failed in the beginning to set those expectations and those boundaries. Now, boundaries are a weird thing in the fire service. I go back and forth on them, right? There are certain things in the fire service you're going to have to do that may cross some of your boundaries. They're not like detrimental or like that serious, but you got to get up at night. That may cross someone's boundary of what they prefer to do, which would be sleep all night. You'll have to treat people that maybe you don't agree with because they're being extremely hostile towards you, but now you got to be a professional towards them. You're going to have to do things that make you uncomfortable. So boundaries in the fire service are weird, including boundaries of your personal safety. You might be put in a situation that is obviously risky, but it's unfortunately necessary. That might be a personal boundary of yours that, due to the circumstances at that exact time, you might have to cross that threshold of comfort to get that job done. But when it comes to those non-emergent tasks, our boundaries are more gray, right? Can you do it? Yeah. Will I do it? Probably. You start to fall in those like decision points, right? There's also conflicts now, talking about priorities of like what you would ideally have the department say and do and state as an objective, and what they actually do. And this was a conversation that happened a while ago where somebody was saying, the department's always talking about how important sleep is and how important resiliency is and our mental health, and I'd really like to see them back that up by taking some measures. And I said, where are you looking to find these statements from the department? Like, I've seen none of these statements. In fact, I've seen our department say, yes, we run a lot of calls. I'm sorry you're going to be tired. That's part of the job. And eventually your role will change and maybe you won't be so tired when you're not running on the ambulance all the time. I've seen that statement. I've seen the statement that says the public's first and you're expected to do what is needed to be done to carry out the task. I've seen that statement. I have not seen the statement that says we want you to get as much sleep as possible and that's number one priority. I have not seen that. There was a conflict there between what that person thought should be the standards and what the department should take as number one priority and what they actually do. I'm not here to say that any side is right? I understand sleep deprivation, been living it for a while. I understand the importance of getting sleep. I also understand that we're in a job where that's not promised all the time. And so you got to come to that mutual understanding and rectify those things in your head. Reconcile those things in your head of like, yeah, it'd be great if it was, but it's not. So I can't get mad about that. That's not true. You can get mad about it, but you don't have much of a leg to stand on. So when does this stuff need to be looked at? And I'm blazing through these notes here. I do a really bad job of referencing my notes. I write down a lot. I got a page of notes written down here. I'm already 3/4 of the way down because I'm skipping stuff. But when do we need to look at this stuff? And the easiest threshold for me to know when you should start looking at this stuff is like when it starts impacting your life outside of work. And mostly I see that as like being distracted or the inability to be present, or you're sacrificing things at home now for a project that can wait realistically, but it's been told to you as this is an important thing, so I need you to get it done. So you take that in as like, this takes priority now. But can it take priority tomorrow? Is it okay if it does? Again, that's a conversation to have on the front end, and mostly early if you can, preferably early if you can, say like, and this is the tough one, right? Because you don't want to go to your captain or battalion chief or chief and say, I can't handle that right now. Like that's a tough way to sell. That's a tough thing to say because you know that like it or lump it, there are some implications of telling the higher ups that you can't handle something. There's absolutely going to be something attached to that where like, well, if they're already tapped out and I ask them to run these few reports and they can't do that, maybe they can't do this other thing. Maybe they're not able to take on this other task. Maybe they're not willing or able to do this thing that we really need that would make them look good. You don't want to sell yourself short. You don't want to take yourself out of the running for stuff in the future, or quite honestly, be perceived as weak or unable or not good enough, right? So we end up burying ourselves in that work. But I'll tell you that a lot of times that's happened or nearly happened. The conversation to set the tone early is not that difficult, and it's much less scary than you expect. And it's basically setting the timeline, setting expectations, holding on to them and sticking to it, but you have to stick to it. You can't say, okay, I understand this is important. I need 3 weeks to get this done. I can't have it done next day. Can I have 3 weeks? You got to get it done in 3 weeks then. Because if you start going over, then you start looking, you've asked them to accommodate you. Now, if you abuse that and it takes 6 weeks, you've dug yourself in just as big as a hole of doing it very quickly but poorly. Setting boundaries and setting expectations is weird. It's so super weird. But I think it's very important to do. So if you're in a position where you're an emerging blue shirt or you're a lieutenant or a captain or whatever, and you see yourself going down this path, you've been given tasks, you've been brought onto a group or a team, and all of a sudden your day is filling up and you're turning into the person that's like, yeah, I'd like to go out and do that training with you. Let me just finish this real quick in the office, then I'll come out and do that drill. We all know that person is not coming out to that drill. If you see yourself starting to do more administrative or clerical stuff or stuff that you would consider, quote unquote, outside of your job description or additional tasks that would not usually be yours, and it's taking away from your ability to serve the public and respond in emergent situations, that's when those conversations need to be had. So that's the vocational side, and the other side was at home, right, when it starts to take away. And that very much happens with this thing too. With this podcast, it's very clear to me anyways, by my behavior, the day I'm going to record, I'm pretty distracted. Like the morning is tough because all I'm thinking about is like, is the camera battery charged? What am I going to talk about? How much time do I have to record? Is this a good topic? Are people going to care? So I'm distracted. Then as soon as I hit the end button on this thing and publish it, the relief is like astounding. And then all starts again on Sunday night. But when you start to become distracted and not be able to do stuff with your family or the things that are actually priorities, right? That's another conversation to be had. Outside of work, take a look. So I'm sorry if this was a little bit rambling. Like I said, terrible job at keeping up with my notes, but I feel like that was an important thing to talk about, because if you're listening to this podcast, if you're in that position where you're getting more tasks delegated to you, you're kind of someone who wants to help and make a change and do better and do what you can to help your department and the public, right? The amount of toll that takes on you, you have to control. Because if it's up to the people delegating the tasks, a lot of times they're not going to be looking out for that. They want their tasks to be completed. They don't know that you're staying up until midnight at home working on a PowerPoint for training. They don't know that you weren't able to be present at Nathan's birthday party last week because you were worried about the multi-company drill that you're putting together. They don't know that you were not able to do the company drill and do search and rescue stuff and throw ladders with your crew last week because you were worried about reviewing EMS calls. And quite honestly, not to be too harsh or brutal on it, all that extra work you do, all the sacrifice that you make and all the things you miss out on will likely come down to a 10 to 15 second conversation with the chief during a review, during a promotional process, during some sort of critique. And all it's going to come down to, all those hours you agonized and gave up opportunities and drove yourself nuts. It'll come down to this. Wow, I see you do a lot of work with the training division. Good job. Keep that up. That's it. That's what it amounts to. If you get 10 points on a promotional exam and you were an 8, maybe you're an 8 still. Maybe you're not even a 9 anymore because, hey, we've asked you to do these things and you did them. Great. That's satisfactory. And on the backside of it, you've just torn yourself apart trying to meet that mark. So it's going to be very much up to you to protect yourself from digging that hole. Find someone that you can trust, that can vouch for you, that can run interference for you. That's one of the greatest things I like doing as a lieutenant is seeing what my crew has on their plate and then running interference between them and my captain, basically, or my battalion chief. Because I want to be that buffer. I want to be that person that when they say, hey, why isn't so-and-so done with this project yet? I can say, because I had him doing this and we were doing inspections and I had him doing this project and he's working on it. It's just taking a little bit of time. Maybe we should get him some more help or extend his timeline. I really like that role of this thing. Find someone that can do that for you. Find someone that can help you navigate this stuff, who's been through it before. There's people who are empathetic to so many situations you don't know about because you're not in them. And if you're in a situation and you feel like it's getting away from you, I guarantee you're not the first person in your department that's been in that position. Likely, it's whoever was in that position before you that's not doing it anymore. That's what's happened to them, and now they're not doing it anymore for one reason or another. And depending on how that got managed or handled, will help you manage or handle it a different way or the same way. Again, it's a weird situation. It's a weird industry. It's different than being an accountant, a librarian, working at the grocery store. It extends into our life, right? It's a part of our life. Yes, we're gone for 2 days, but are we really? I'm not the kind of person that can say like, all right, I'm out of here at 7 a.m. I'm not checking my email for 2 days. This place doesn't exist to me. I'm not that person. I'm also not the kind of person who is checking my work email 5 times a day when I'm off shift and making phone calls and really digging in on my off days, because I see where that road leads. I see where that goes, and I know it's a slippery slope for me. If you can handle it, cool, but check in, right? Katie will definitely tell me when I need to pay attention, and I'm trying to avoid that conversation. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me. As always, let's work on being more capable and durable, both on the job and away from it. We'll talk to you soon. Be a fourth shift firefighter. Bye-bye.